Hey, everybody. We're back with the Menorah podcast, episode 55. Today we have a special topic for you. And of course, again, the irony is not lost on who's talking and what we're talking about. But we thought we would talk with you about your children and bringing them to church. I'm here, of course, again with my lovely wife, Sherrell. Say hi.
Hello.
We thought we'd give you our perspective on children in church, and we've both been in church all of our lives, and we have participated in children's ministries. So, what's your immediate thoughts about that?
I feel like that one of my favorite sayings around here when I'm in the hallways or in the classrooms is I love church kids. And that doesn't mean that I love church kids more than other kids, but I love to see kids that are here and are comfortable in the hallways and in the worship center and anxious to go to class and want to run up and hug the pastor and things like that.
Excited.
Hmm.
Yeah. When we were growing up, it was never a question as to whether I was coming to church. That was always a given, and I knew that at a pretty early age. We didn't miss church for hardly anything. And I remember visiting churches on vacation when we were gone on Sundays. So, I had a pretty a pretty strong foundation for always being at church. And I guess I'm a pleaser because I always wanted to please my parents. I never wanted to disappoint anybody. And so I continued. But for me, I remember church being a fun place to be.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody recently, and my mom was active in church. My dad was not. He was a great dad. He just was not active in church. But basically, if there was something going on at the church, I wanted to be here, regardless of what it was. And I had some real sweet neighbors that would pick me up if mom wasn't coming. And I just was always very comfortable and also very comforted when I was here at church.
I remember as a child sitting in adult study courses.
Hmm.
We used to have, we'd have probably three or four of those things a year.
Yep.
And they usually had special little books. My parents still had some of those books. And it was just a very intensive Bible study, but it was for adults. And I sat in a number of those things with my parents, and there were other children that were in there as well. And I can still remember the first time that I was allowed not to go to one of those. They had a youth Bible study that ran concurrently, and it was led by Mr. Terry Pound. And he talked my mom and daddy into letting me go in there with the kids. And, they were all much older than me. And I can only remember one other person in the room was Mr. David Rish. But I remember him and I remember Terry. And that was probably the beginning of me kind of branching out and being involved in things away from my parents.
Mama did the adult Bible studies, the ladies, and she would let me go, and I actually did the Bible study pretty young. And then we also did some things like, besides Vacation Bible School, they would do like backyard Bible clubs and stuff. And I was just sitting here thinking while you were talking, I guess one of the things that we had as far as in our favor for church was a lot of things revolved around the church, not just things here, but that backyard Bible club made me think of that. But also, we had, as we got a little bit older, we had church softball teams. And so when you look at it, you're at church on Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night, and then we might have practice one or two nights a week and games. We were surrounded by church people most of our lives growing up, both you and I.
Church activities and people.
That's true.
Yeah, I remember those days as well. And, sometimes we often forget how important it is to just be saturated in something. It's a reinforcement.
Exactly.
We have a situation now. We only have two services really a week. Now there are a few other opportunities throughout the month, and it's really easy to let it's like during COVID, the education system said that we had so many kids that really fell behind because they weren't keeping up their studies. It gives you a lot of time to forget, I guess, what you learn at church. And it also, there's so many more things in our children's lives now that compete for attention.
Yes, there are. There's a lot of, and not bad things. There's a lot of good things. I mean, my nieces and nephews are involved in sports and gymnastics and extracurricular activities at school, and I'm very proud of them because it's making them well rounded. And I think that I want to be careful how I say this because I don't want it to sound controversial. But I think that one of the things that our church has done well is that the children's teams that we have now, rather than trying to compete with those things, they have come up with ways that when something's going on here at the church for adults, that there's always something for children, so that people aren't stressed out about trying to participate in things.
Right.
We've come into a place that people can feel alienated if they miss a church event and somebody says, I miss you, because sometimes people are critical, and we don't need to be that way at all.
No.
We want our doors open and we want people to feel welcome. I know that some people that are listening know Alan and I very well, and we do come at this from a different perspective because we don't have children. So I am not ever one to judge how people have to spend their time with their kids because I don't go home and do that at night. And I've always felt like the best thing we could do is offer things to help the families and the children. And they have done a great job now. They have children's worship, they have a complete team of children's worship workers, and they also, I love this, they have family game night the first Friday night of the month. And they do different things every month, and the whole families are
And
invited.
yeah,
It's not,
that's a family event.
it is. It's not like you drop your kids off, and so we get. I've been a couple of times, and then the pictures you see, it'll be that their parents or their grandparents. Sometimes their aunts or uncles will come, and cousins when they're in town. And last week, the Girls in Action, which is our GA missions group, they did a fund night where they raised funds for missions, and families came to that. So, we have our big events, of course, around the holidays, but it's really the day in and day out weekly activities, I think, that help support the kids in their foundational learning about Christ.
Yeah, and I do want to say, I guess this is kind of somewhat of a disclaimer. You know, we're not by any means trying to tell you how to raise your children because we have absolutely no experience in that area, but we have seen a lot of things. We've seen a lot of people. We've grown up with a lot of people that we know are involved in other churches. We know some are not. We know within their own lives they've taken different paths, and that's okay. We're not saying that's good or that's bad. We're just saying that because we were brought up in church, it was really important for us when we got to the point where we could make our own decisions. I think if you are really heavy handed in enforcing your children to church, I think they could resent it. They
Oh,
could
I
come
think
to
so.
resent it.
And that was something that my mom encouraged it. And there was many Sundays that she had to prompt Will and I out of the house to get to church because we were too tired from playing maybe on Saturday or something like that. But other than that, I mean, it wasn't a big deal being here. Now, it's been interesting working. I've had the privilege to work with the children's department and also the youth program. And it seems much of the time in a youth's life, there's really two categories. There's kids that have never been to church, and when they get older and their friends invite them from school, they come and they love it. They've not had that opportunity, and we've had a great youth group through the years, and it's organically grown for the most part because of friends bringing friends. Then you have the kids that have grown up here all their life and they just naturally go into that place and it's really not a big deal to them. But most of them, if they have been active as children, will have that yearning to be a part of something. And that's a blessing, I believe. I have seen a change in our lifetime from when you and I did children's worship, and a lot of the children back then were dropped off, and we actually met in the fellowship hall back then. So parents would just drive up to the building, drop their kids off, and go on, and then come back and pick them up when it was over. But we are very, very blessed with families now that are all in teenagers, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, children, babies. And our pastor has started a Family Matters program that he's done twice. And in May, he's going to do another one that's for the first group again. All the families that have come out of that have just, they've come out talking about all the neat things they learned. So it's been a really good thing. I think that our church is focused on not just youth, not just children, but now we're focused on families.
Right. And when I was small, and my family started preparing for Sunday mornings really on Monday. They planned their week so that we didn't have activities that may last late into the evening on Saturday. We were always mindful of where we were and what we were involved in come Saturday evening. And so my parents made it a point to kind of structure their week so that come Saturday morning we were making sure all of our chores were done. We were getting things ready, and then we all got ready Saturday night to get up and come to church on Sunday morning. And I'm sure, I'm sure that as a child I was troublesome on some Sunday mornings, but I just don't remember it.
Mama, I can remember us getting our clothes out and Saturday night, so we didn't have to argue about what we're going to wear on Sunday morning. The other thing that was kind of neat I remember about our childhood is I actually lived in Gaston, so very close to the church, right behind where the post office is now in Gaston. And one of the gentlemen in our church at 5 o'clock would ring the church bell, and that was signifying that it was an hour before church. Now, why they started that exactly, I don't know. I have a thought. I don't know that this is true, but Pastor Brady has done a lot on the history of things and all, and I've wondered about the church bell. I would love to know if maybe they used that bell when the pastor was coming, because back then when there was a circuit pastor, there were times that they didn't really have church at a certain time.
Right.
And so I wouldn't be surprised if that's not why they used the bell originally. But when I was growing up, it was 5 o'clock on Sundays, and so I would be outside playing. I would hear the bell ring, and I would know to go in and get ready for church because it was going to be starting at 6 o'clock. And there's a lot of neat things about growing up in church and having those church memories that I just absolutely treasure.
Yeah, you said that about the bell. They rang it on Sunday mornings as well,
Mm-hmm.
before Sunday school. And my parents were really close with Mr. Burnflaw and his wife, who was at the time our Sunday school director
That's
and
right.
had been the Sunday school director for as many years as I could remember.
Yes.
But I actually remember Mr. Burnflaw holding me, picking me up and holding me, and letting me pull he had a piece of wire that you
Yes.
reach up and catch the rope, because we knew if the rope hung down to where anybody could grab it, they'd ring it all
All
the
the time.
time. Yeah, so we had this piece of wire, and I remember him holding me up and letting me ring
Oh,
that
that's
bell.
cool.
And I can remember, so many things like that. And I remember the first time that I saw them putting water in the baptistry.
Yeah.
It's just one of those fascinating things
Mm-hmm.
that you don't think about, but it's just everyday routine stuff now as an adult. But as a child, it was a point that the pastor at that time, the pastor actually did that.
Mm-hmm.
He run the water in there, and so that gave him an opportunity to share, again, to reinforce baptism in my mind and what it was all about.
Yes.
So those are some of the things that by spending time at church,
Mm-hmm.
you get to see, you get other things that you are taught get get reinforced.
Well, I think to what you're doing now, we talked a good bit about what I did last week, but and I know y'all have addressed this before, but your love for what you're doing now was what you loved as a kid, and you were the person that brought actually a sound system into our church, and you did it because you loved it. I mean, you're up here all the time now at the church, but you were as a teenager, and as soon as you could drive, if you weren't home, you were pretty much up here getting things going and keeping things going. And I'm personally very thankful for that because that is why we met, because I was in a group where you ran sound, and we, met. We knew each other growing up, of course, but there's 4 years difference. So when we started, I got old enough to date and we were in the same group, things worked out, and it's been a wonderful gift to me, your gift of being at the church all the time.
Well, 4 years doesn't seem like hardly any space today,
No.
but when you're 12, 15,
Yeah, I
it's
had
a
to get a
lot
little
more
bit older
space. Yeah, it's a lot more
before
space.
you paid attention to me.
Um, so yeah, and I would, I appreciate those kind of words, and it's been a great ride for me too. It's one of those things that I believe the Lord has blessed us uh, both in our marriage and our love because we have stayed in church.
That's
And
right.
we had hard times. Yeah, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
everybody deals with
That's
something.
right.
God doesn't necessarily bypass that kind of stuff for Christians. He gives us the ability to handle and make our way through those.
Agreed with that, very much so. And I think that's one of the reasons why, if I ever say anything to anybody about I missed you at church or I wish your children were here or something like that, it is never in judgment. It is honestly because I know how good God is and how good He's been to me when I did not deserve it. But I know because His Word says it that He honors faithfulness. And having your children in church, encouraging them and keeping them church when they're teenagers, I just don't think you could go wrong with that.
I don't know that there is a better way to wrap up a show than that. We could probably have said that and been done with it.
And some people might have been happy with
And some
that.
people might have been happy with that. But let me just say this: we will be coming at you again next week. Be sure to look out for our next episode. That'll be episode 56. We'll have another special show for you. But we appreciate you listening. Don't forget, if you have show ideas or anything like that, you can always text us or reach out to Miss Velvet here at the church, and she will relay those messages for us. Again, we thank you for the kind words we've heard and for reaching out to us. I want to remind you the purpose of the Menorah podcast is to share the light, speak the light, and send the light of Jesus Christ throughout the world. And we hope you'll join us next time.
Bye bye.